Take it away.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. Welcome to episode 26 of Heresy Hammer. We've a different lineup today, another gruesome twosome, myself and Rob. Notice that Rob is the only ever present on all of these episodes. Honestly, what does that say about me and Lee? And alternatively,
I'm the integral one because I record it right and then edit it.
absolutely, and
So I
edit
have
it
to. I'm
and put it
locked in
out.
no matter what I do. So
Yeah, you have made very much an enormous rod for your, let's be honest,
yeah.
broad own back there. So silly
Integral.
boy. So tonight we're going to be continuing our coverage of the Siege of Cthonia campaign book. Rob and Lee did a phenomenal job on going through the lore last time out and getting us all enthused for what is to come over the coming months with regards to Siege of Cthonia. So pat on the back there, Rob.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a
Um,
lot of fun. It was a lot of fun actually. I think it seems to be a popular video. It's definitely one that you can listen to in the background, right, while you're painting. You know,
100%.
just it just sort of tells it. I felt like it was more like a history podcast than it was
Mm,
the Horus Heresy podcast. But I think it would be good if we get future campaign books to break it up like that. Like just do some. And also, I think the other big thing was that most of the videos I've now seen to do with the Siege of Cthonia has mainly been focusing on the rules. And it was, I think, it's nice that like we focus on the story and then have a look at a bit of the rules as well.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. I mean, the reason that we play Heresy is because it's got such a
yeah,
phenomenal narrative, and it's important to kind of as that narrative now kind of, I guess, kind of moves forward in an odd way because obviously we know
yeah,
it's
yeah,
about
yeah,
to
yeah,
come to
yeah,
a crescendo. We've seen the artwork for End of the Death Volume 2 in the last couple of days as
yeah,
well. So we know that in theory it's coming to an end, but somehow it's still moving forward. So I think it's really important
yeah,
that we kind of keep on top of that as well.
yeah.
I'd almost implore you, if you haven't watched it, to stop what you're doing and go back and watch the other one first because it will
Yeah.
really get you hyped.
Absolutely.
So as we've said, it's Rob at Meadows Miniatures on all the social medias,
It is.
and me, John, at D6 underscore miniatures on the various social medias that I am uh, bothering with. Without further ado, we'd firstly like to introduce some of our sponsors and our friends out and about. First one, Bits Monster. They have recently relocated to a larger operation,
I
so
saw that. Yeah.
they're able to have more bits and send more stuff out. So if you want that particular bit from that particular kit, you don't want to have to buy the whole thing, then head over to Bits Monster. You can head over to bitsmonster.com, at bits.monster on Instagram, and bits.monster on Facebook. As always, free UK shipping over £25. And as we've said a number of times, very reasonable cost for international shipping too. So take advantage of our stinking currency. And if you use the code Heresy Hammer at checkout, you get an additional 10% off all Heresy items. So super useful. If you want a high quality bespoke 3D printing service, then make sure you give Dan a shout. Dan does an awful lot to assist with our events, production for our bits and bobs. He's got loads of stuff on file and like super high quality prints as well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And Dan will be, in fact, visiting at our next Horus Heresy event, which you will be attending on
I
the
will be attending. Yeah, I'm going to be at that one. So
so
looking
Dan is
forward
yeah,
to that.
Dan's coming on Sunday. So you can
Oh,
see
cool.
some of the bits that Dan has created. He's got a nice tablecloth, so he tells me so he can put all his stuff on it, and see some of the prints that he's done. So yeah, it would be good if you're coming to that event, bring your wallet. I'm sure he'll
Bring a
be
purse.
happy to sell you some goodies.
Oh, yes, absolutely. So make sure you follow at gator.3d on Instagram and Gator 3D Printing over on the Facebook. So we haven't got a lot of news this time out, really, have we? There's not
No,
not a
no,
lot has happened. So
no.
we're going to go catch my little bit of correspondence first off, and a bit of admin from our end. And then we're going to kind of just dig into the Legion updates in the Siege of Cthonia campaign. So typically focusing ourselves on the Imperial Fists and the Sons of Horus updates, what that can mean for your armies, what that can mean for your list building, and yeah, how you can kind of integrate some of this stuff into your existing games, right?
Yeah, I think the other thing is that, and we always say this on the Tactica. So if you aren't subscribed to our Tactica to our Patreon, I don't. I don't know why, because it's only £3 a month. But basically, we often say, although some Mechanicum videos that we did, they're not exclusively for Mechanicum because Space Marine legions need to know what these do. And the same is if you're one of the other 16 legions, you will face Imperial Fist and Sons of Horus. So it's good about like knowing your enemy. If you're not one of those Sons of Horus or Imperial Fist players, this will be a great episode because you'll know what these things will do, so you won't get a nasty surprise when you come across them at an event, right?
Yeah. Spoiler alert, some of these surprises are going to be quite nasty as well. So it's really...
Exactly. It's good to know what's coming.
Wonderful. So, so we're going to be splitting our Cthonia sort of coverage down into sort of several little kind of bite-sized chunks. We've already focused on the lore. That's in the bag. That's a great video. Make sure you watch it. We're going to be covering the Legion rules updates today. And then we're going to do a real deep dive into the Zone Mortalis stuff on the next main show. Chiefly because Rob's got a couple of games scheduled and has played a couple of games already.
Yeah.
And I am taking my Sons of Horus to an entirely ZM event this weekend, which is utilizing a lot of the new rules from the campaign. I think the only thing we have house ruled is the fact that no Leviathans, because I think it would just mess with people's list building a little bit too much. So
how many points? How many?
1750.
So can you take? Are they still allowing 2 dreadnoughts to be taken, or is it still
2 dreadnoughts? Yeah, 2 dreads. I've only got 1 in my list.
Right. Okay.
It'll be coming out before the event, so I've only taken 1 dreadnought. So for everyone that thinks that I'm a, but but I'll be honest with you, if I could have taken a Leviathan, I would take a Leviathan.
Okay, fair enough.
Never mind. And then we're going to cover a couple of other things. We're going to visit the Decurions in real depth over on the Patreon. Yep. And then we're also going to be revisiting a couple of very popular episodes recently, which was the Synergies video and the Inducti video. And we're going to do synergizing the Inducti as well. So
yeah,
a lot to cover for Cthonia over the next sort of month or so. But without further ado, we did promise that we would look at our miniature a little bit more. So I know we've been teasing this for a fair while now. We over on our Patreon, we commissioned Diverging Realm Wilf to produce us a custom character, a breaker of walls, a destroyer of cities, and he's done.
Yes.
We've not only is he done, but we've also got the first prints.
Yes, we have.
So this has been an unbelievable project to be involved in. Wilf's done an unbelievable job. And what we've realized actually is the fact that the miniature is actually going to be 2 miniatures.
Yes.
It's a real big kit. So everyone will receive two torsos, 1 cloaked, 1 non-cloaked, and a variety of head and weapon options. So the miniature will be available for our top tier patrons. So after you've been subscribed to the Praetor tier for 6 months, we'll be sending out a physical copy of the miniature to you
as a gift.
As a gift.
Reward.
So it's worth saying it is a reward. We're not going to be selling the miniature, and the STL will also not be available for you to purchase. So we are giving this to you as a gift for our gratitude and our thanks. So head over to the Patreon, look for Heresy Hammer on Patreon or patreon.com/Heresy Hammer. We would obviously implore you, if you can show any support, it's much appreciated. This has cost an awful lot of money to produce. And let me tell you, no one is getting rich off of doing this. But it is worth saying, when we talk about things like our Tactica videos, they're all available to everyone on Patreon. So it's a mere £3 a month, and you can get all of our in-depth knowledge plus various other bits and bobs. But we'll discuss that more in the end. However, Rob, you've had this miniature for what, a couple of days?
Yeah, it arrived on Monday. I was really excited.
How excited were you? So excited that you immediately put it together and painted it straight away?
That's exactly what I did, yeah. It took me a couple of days to do it on and off because I had proper commission work to do. But I kind of got it all finished. And I got all the Heresy Hammer stuff done today. So I got Igor's Alpha Legion Librarian painted up, as well as got this finished as well.
So librarian,
without further ado, I guess.
Well, the librarian pictures are over on Instagram, right? So if you want to check out what that looks like.
Yeah.
And then, without further ado, there he is.
It's the first one. So this is the first one in the world that has been painted up.
Is this an exclusive? Is that what you're
This
saying?
is it. This is an exclusive. So you can see here the miniature, and it looks really different from the silhouette that kind of we had seen previously. So this has 20 elements to it. So people can choose to have it either cloaked or uncloaked. So this is the uncloaked version. Obviously.
And you get 2 individual torsos in the kit, don't you? Right?
Yeah. So basically, from the kit that we will give as gifts to our patrons. So this comes in 20 bits, basically. So there's enough to make 2 separate models if you want to. And you can choose kind of what weapon options it is. I chose the hammer and holding the head. I thought that was it tell the story, right? But there are lots of other weapon options, swords, hammers, guns and things like that. So it's up to you how you want to create it. But I think we're super pleased with how it came out. It paints really, really nicely. And Jack from Beowulf did a great job of printing it for us. And then we've got the prints from Dan from Gate 3D coming, I think, this weekend. So I'll kind of knock up another one. And then what I've said to the patrons as well, and this is a Patreon exclusive only, is that I will make a video this weekend showing how to do that kind of like Phosphex glow on the kind of on the skeleton. So that another exclusive painting video for our patrons. It's not just Tactica, but I will knock that up for the patrons as well.
Oh, wow. That's news to even me.
There you go.
So you painted it with an irradiated word bearer.
Yeah. So I think it tells a story of vengeance, I guess. I think is was what I was thinking when I was painting it up. Kind of more, not really Cal, more retribution for Cal, perhaps like a cultist kind of destruction of cultures kind of thing going on.
Absolutely love it. So if you head over to Instagram, we're going to be posting some whips over the course of the next few weeks with what myself, Rob, and Lee are working on with our miniatures. So we're going to have quite a few to do. So I'm planning on doing one for my new Iron Warriors army, my sort of 2.0 revision of my Iron Warriors, and also I'm actually going to convert one up to a Master of Signals for my Sons of Horus as well. Awesome. So start working on those imminently. I'm hoping to have my Sons of Horus ready for the next Actium event, which is in 3 weeks.
Yeah, not long away. Yep, beginning.
So he'll definitely be there as well. So if you want to see the miniature up close and in person, and like I said, this will be sent out worldwide with free shipping to all of our Praetor patrons after they've been subscribed for 6 months. Cool. We've also got some hashtag Heresy Hammer to go through this time round as well. So Rob selected these. Right. On the left, we've got an awesome looking Salamander's Praetor from Saga Miniatures. I think this works so well. I fucking love that green. Yeah, really different, like a really kind of muted, like forest green.
Yeah.
I painted a Vulcan a year or so ago for a commission, and I had a very sort of similar kind of green palette, kind of really sort of like diluted and yellowy.
Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah, I think
it tends towards the olive, right? I think that's like a
yeah,
really nice olive green.
Absolutely. I think Scout 7. I think I used a Scout 75 color called Sherwood Green, which I think is quite similar. Really nice. And I think also as well, like the kind of ornate artificed armor really works for Salamander as well. Would you agree?
Yeah, this one works particularly well. I think this miniature. Yeah, it's great.
This absolute slug. Well, why don't you tell me about what you think about these?
Well, I thought it was great. So this is part of your ongoing Sons of Horus force. I always feel it's important that we put one of our 3 kind of like whatever we're working on at the moment. But I liked it because it's just so damn meta, isn't it? I mean, have you used these yet in the game?
Yeah, I used them at an event at Curtain Games, one of our supporters, a couple of weeks ago. Did they do work for you? Oh, of course they're going to do work. I mean, they got absolutely annihilated at the first opportunity. But prior to that, they were doing bits, mate, doing absolute bits.
Yeah, they're really lethal. I think that this is the current, the way that the melter is and the way that the meta is. This is just such a great tank, and it's just I think these are better. 2 of these are better than a Kratos.
Oh,
in my opinion.
yes, absolutely. I think also as well in my Black Reaving Sons of Horus list, I'm limited to two heavy support choices, so I kind of
Yeah,
have to be quite selective. And I really don't want to just go 10-man Las Cannon team because it just
yeah,
doesn't. The whole force is so dynamic; it just doesn't really feel like it kind of fits
yeah,
necessarily. So
yeah,
that was my thought process behind double Preds. And truth be told, I had them on the shelf, so I thought,
yeah.
well, here we go.
Why not? Yeah, exactly.
Why
No, they look brilliant.
why not?
Yeah.
Cool. Moving swiftly on. These Ultramarines, Rob. You like Ultramarines? Talk to me about these Ultramarines.
Can't get enough of Ultramarines. So we've seen, I think before we've had WRHD underscore Ollie before.
I think he sent a listing, didn't he?
I think he may have done. Maybe I can't quite recall that. But his Ultramarines are excellent. He did a Gilliman conversion a while ago now that just looked brilliant, and I just thought these really epitomised some excellent Ultramarines. Absolutely love them. But tell us about Liam's painting, Thousand Suns Praetor, I guess it is. This looks similar to one we've seen in a book recently.
I love everything about this.
Yeah, that's
I
great.
mean, I literally can't get enough of this. I mean, I can get enough because he only painted half of it, but I'm certainly getting half. I'm getting a whole half. This is it's really fucking evocative, right?
It's
This
great.
is I think this is using I'm not sure if the bits are 3D prints and or using some of the 40k plastics
I
as
think
well.
that all 40. In fact, I think this model, apart from the head, is all plastics. Because I think the head is Forge World. So I also knocked something up similar, not
Oh,
quite
did
exactly the
you?
same, but I also did. And this, I think, the inspiration for this came from the Siege of Cthonia book, because there's a great Kit Bash Praetor in there.
Yeah, brilliant, right?
And he looks fantastic. Like it's the best use of that body because I think that particular model is total dog shit. Until
But
he
somehow
was,
this works so well, right?
it's just insane. Like it works so well for the Thousand Suns, that it just elevated that fucking dog shit model to another level. Like it was absolutely brilliant. So he's done an absolutely cracking job with this, and I think you can make your conversion like this if you want to as well, just with some Thousand Suns bits. So. Yeah.
Yeah, this is, and the paint job is, the red is so rich.
So good. So good.
Absolutely love it. Yeah,
Yeah.
looking forward to seeing the final version of this Liam's painting. Please make sure you tag us in the finished version so we can show that off too. Daedrin's been up to making some disgusting, grubby mech, and I mean that from the painting perspective, but also because the fact that it's fucking six
they're all secutors, yeah.
Trioros. So I believe I want to say he's been painting some Empress Children recently, or at the start his 2.0 initial project was Empress Children, I think from memory.
Yeah, okay.
But these are really cool. So we've got like a cheeky Malanax Knight in the background.
Yeah.
And then we've got some, let's be honest, top tier dick kickers.
We've done a whole Tactica episode about these as well, right?
We did two. We did one as to why they're so good, and secondly, how to deal with the fuckers. So, yeah, I mean, they are great. Really, really nice. I like the super grubby paint job. It looks like they could not give a shit about what they're doing.
It's so good. Because the Malanax was originally done by Mark Bedford. Like, yes. I think he originally coined the scheme, and then it's just like, you saw a lot of red Mechanicum, and now you see like a lot of cream Mechanicum, but they just look so. There's something about light colors weathered that just looks absolutely brilliant. It's just so
super evocative. Yeah. And old Anvils of Conor. Old Jack's done some great cream work as well.
He gets all this abuse for not painting models, and then and so I thought it was important that we kind of shared a painted model by him because he's done a terrific job with this converted Cataphracti Death Guard Praetor. But I think it's converted from.
He's a Warmonger.
It's a Warmonger, is it? Okay, but I think it's converted from the one from Forge World, right? I think it's okay. So he's made it unique. I think he's made it taller as well. So yeah, looks fantastic.
Yeah, he's done. If you get to see his Instagram, he's done a really, really good job on the cloak, which you can't necessarily see too much from this angle, but looks absolutely wicked. And just the classic, nice, like Jack little touches, like that little bent bit of rebar that's poking out the ground, and just like, well done, Jack.
And a tenderizer. That is definitely brutal too. Tenderizing.
Absolutely. Should really be a Graviton Crusher, I think, but we'll let him off that one. Let's be honest. So we said in the last video that we would definitely dig around in our mailbag for some correspondence, and I've dug around in our enormous group sack and pulled out this email with an attached list to go through. So this comes from clearly a man of immense taste, a gentleman by the name of David. David says, "Hi, I've recently joined your Patreon. What a hero. I've listened to your podcast on YouTube for a few months and I'm really enjoying your content. Thank you, David. It's letters like this and support on the Patreon that means we want to continue producing this top tier content. So thank you. If you too are enjoying our content, please consider subscribing to the channel or giving us a little thumbs up. I particularly enjoyed your Veteran Squad video, which is one of the tacticas over on the Patreon, which was one of the early ones we did.
Earliest ones, yeah. I think it's one of the earliest ones, actually.
Keep up the great work, Rob. Attached is a 2,500 point Dark Angels Dreadwing list, brackets Eschaton Imperative, that I'm taking to a narrative event taking place at ProTech Games in Stockton-on-Tees. At the time of writing, I don't know what the missions will be. Probably the best way, right?
Yeah.
So, initial thoughts. The general plan will be slowly advanced. So, it will be slowly advanced with the bulk of the army into no man's land. Brackets 3 tactical squads, one of which will be led by my warlord, dreadnoughts, and the rapier batteries, and the multiple graviton weapons helping to create dangerous terrain to make wounding the enemy easier with my dreadwing units.
Okay.
Synergizing, right? He's been thinking, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Immediately behind them will be my interemptors, which I'll use to counterattack anything that gets too close. Yeah, they'll mess anything up. Yep. Or to support a late game assault on an objective. Again, thinking ahead, planning. We like it. The exact sort of thing the Dark Angel would do as well, right?
Exactly.
Screams Dark Angels to me. The Rhino giving them mobility. My Scorpius battery and heavy support squad with attached Master of Signals will naturally be at the back.
Yep.
The Apothecaries being Stormwing allow me to swap my tactical squad hexagrammaton options as needed between Dreadwing and Stormwing. Again, that guy.
Yeah.
Dreadwing to maximize resilience versus plasma, etc., as well as to improve damage output against enemy units in dangerous terrain, or Stormwing to maximize accuracy. The main concerns I have prior to the event are any armies that can get into melee with me, as my melee options are limited. Got to be careful for those, especially those that are deep striking, or multi-wound, high toughness shooting armies, particularly Myrmidon heavy.
Yeah.
The boogeymen. The other problem I foresee is a potential lack of scoring units, as I'm leaning on my tacticals to do a fair amount of the fighting. Hope you find this interesting. Could not find this more interesting. And the person who can't really begin to find this more interesting is Robert Medwell, who I believe has been doing a lot of Dark Angel bits recently. So, Rob, please take us through David's list.
I certainly will. So I'm glad we picked David out of our sacks.
Our bulging sack.
Out of our bulging sacks, because it's quite an in-depth one to go through. Just because the Dark Angels rules there's not just one Legion rule. There are 6 Legion rules, right? And each unit needs to choose a particular Legion rule. And then we will compare that with the Eschaton Right of War, see if it's the right of war, because I think personally it's got some drawbacks, quite a lot of drawbacks, I think. But let's have a look. So he's got Centurion, he's got the Dreadwing, and he's got the Master of the Crown, Wall of Trait, and he's got a Tyrannic Greatsword. And he's also a Delegatus, so that unlocks the Right of War. He's got the Master of Signal, which he told us about. He's got 3 Apothecaries, and they're Stormwing. He's got 2 Contemptor Dreadnoughts. So he's got Gravis Lance Cannons, Gravis Power Fist, and then he's got 1 Graviton gun per guy. He's got 2 Graviton Cannon Rapiers. That's pretty good. You don't see a lot of those, do you? That's pretty
You
naughty.
Don't. No, they are not necessarily the preferred option, but we like why they're here. I think
they're good. Yeah. We've got a Dreadwing and Trencher squad in the troop slot, so they are not lined, John. I don't know if you know this, but basically Dreadwing.
I did know that.
In the Eschaton Right of War stop, they're not lined, but they are in the troops. They've got 3 tac squads and between kind of 15 and 16 guys. And we've got Nuncio Voxes in there, which is pretty good because you can reroll some of those blasts. In the heavy sports, we've got las cannons. We've got a Leviathan Dreadnought with 2 storm cannons. That feels quite Dark Angels-y to me. And a Phosphex Discharger. And then we've got 2 Scorpius. And that comes into a mighty 2,500 points. So on the face of it, He's got 3 scoring unit. He's
Three
got a
score
lot.
units at 2,500 is nothing to be sniffed at.
He's got a lot of, I think, firepower. And you know, the close combat punch though really comes down to the Contemptors. I think that's the Delegatus, the Master of Signals. They're the only weapon skill 5 that he has. So I think that my major concern would be if one of these units comes into close combat, with the exception of the Dreadnoughts, with say a 5-man squad of Justarian, I think they would probably struggle. That would be my kind of immediate kind of look on this. But if you can just stay away from close combat, you'll be fine because you can just fucking kill things to death. Now, I think he's probably got a plan here, which is that if he can slow and bog things down using the Eschaton Rite of War, he doesn't need to get into close combat. He can kind of stay away from it. I guess that's the rationale. But should we take a look at what some of these things do? Because lots of our listeners won't actually know what kind of the Eschaton does, lots of these warlord traits and things like that. So do you want to go to the next slide? I'm sure we'll have a look at what they do. So the Eschaton Rite of War is quite an interesting Rite of War. But if you're a player playing against it, you probably will struggle. So we said destroyer squads, Mortalis destroyer squads, and Dreadwing Interemptor squads become troops, but they don't have line. Still useful, but it means that Dave's only got 3 scoring units. All models with Dreadwing unit subtype automatically pass any dangerous terrain tests they are called upon to make. That's fine. So the Interemptor is going to pass it. The Warlord is going to pass it. For the duration of the battle, all open terrain areas of the battlefield outside the player's deployment zone count as difficult terrain. So everything, including your own stuff, is going to be subject to a -2. And I think that's important because you pass dangerous terrain tests if you have Dreadwing, but it doesn't mean that you can just walk through all the difficult terrain you've got. So everything's going to be super slow on that battlefield. Those areas previously defined as difficult terrain remain as difficult terrain, while impassable terrain, dangerous terrain, fortification buildings are unaffected by this rule. And then on top of that, John, for any models are deployed, the controlling player may choose to place up to 2 Eschaton markers, represented by 25mm spaces, anywhere in the playing area that is 6 inches from a battlefield edge or any player's deployment zone. The area within 6 inches of an Eschaton marker, including terrain pieces within the zone of this effect, are counted as dangerous terrain in addition to any other effects for the duration of that battle. So I suppose you would put that directly in front of your opponent's kind of, you know, things like their tanks and things like that. So as they pass through, they're going to have to take those dangerous terrain checks. Finally, all models with the Dreadwing unit subtype in attachment using this role will gain +1 to all the wound rolls made against models in any zone of area or terrain piece that counts as dangerous terrain. So the Dreadwing unit subtype. So only the Dreadwing get that. So I think that's really, really critical because I think Dave's used a lot of other wings other than the Dreadwing. Limitations, it's got to be led by Warlord with the Dreadwing or Lionel Johnson. All units selected as troop choices must have the Dreadwing unit subtype. So all units selected as troop choices in a detachment using this right of war. Whoa, interesting. All units selected as troop choices, Legion Destroyer assault squads and Legion Mortalis Destroyer squads and attachment using this right of war must have the Dreadwing unit subtype. So I think that means that his troop choices will also need to have
also need to be Dreadwing.
Will also need to be Dreadwing. So I think that's something to bear in mind because I think that he may have put Stormwing on that. So you can't be that flexible, I think, if you're deciding to use the Eschaton. If at the end of the battle there are enemy units in the opposing player's deployment zone that are not pinned or falling back, the opposing player gains +D3 victory points. That's quite interesting. That could be a win or a loss there. And then you may not take fortification choices. I think there's all sorts of problems with this right of war because I think it looks quite good, but I think it just slows down both players quite a lot, and I think it will make for quite a slow game. And you want things that can go speedily. Now, Contemptors are quite speedy, but the moment you take off 2 inches, they just become like plodding leviathans, right? You know, I know that they can run, but you know that's only a 6 inch, essentially.
But also, do you want them to be running when they've got one of your few kind of ranged heavy weapons as well? So
yeah. So I think that's an interesting one. But there are some other things that we need to have a look at within this. So the wings and the warlord traits. So let's go to the next slide, John. So he's the Warlord for Dave is the Marshal of the Crown. Now, this Warlord trait, you select one of the Hexagrammaton unit subtypes, all units that include at least one model with a corresponding unit subtype, and at least one model with the line of sight to the Warlord gain +1 leadership to a maximum of 10. So basically, like the Deathwing and the Dreadwing in the assault phase, if they can see the Warlord, they get +1 leadership, right? So it's quite situational, and I think that I actually prefer Seneschal of the Keys, but I can see why it's not chosen it because it you know it's one of those ones again that's quite situational. It's got no close combat heavy unit, so basically for a turn you get +1 weapon skill or +1 ballistic skill. So on a squad of tacticals, it might be quite useful to have that +1 ballistic skill, but it's not game changing. And I think that to use these and synergize these is going to be quite difficult. I think with the Eschaton. Let's have a look at the next one, because this comes down to all those other bits, right? So I think we've already talked about the tacticals are going to need to be Dreadwing, because that's what the Right of War says, unless somebody out there can tell me otherwise. And with the Dreadwing Right of War, with the Dreadwing kind of Hexagrammaton, you are -1 to flame, plasma, volkite, and phosphoric weapons in terms of the strength. So they'll be more survivable, but they're not doing anything in particular. The other one that came up quite a lot as well for Dave was Ironwing. So all models in a unit under the effect of this Hexagrammaton unit subtype may re-roll fail to hit rolls of 1 when targeting an enemy model with the vehicle unit type. Additionally, a model with this unit subtype and the vehicle unit type make all snapshots of BS2 instead of BS1. I think that is really good. Really, really good.
It really, really is good.
Yeah. So if we go back to his list, John. So my opinion is that it is a fantastic list, and I think it's absolutely brilliant. But I probably just wouldn't take the Eschaton, and I would just put in your elites. I'd put those interruptors into your elites. I'd put the 2 rapiers together. The rapiers will be able to throw out enough shots to be able to slow things down that you want. You're not being then slowed down, and you're then playing a shooting game. And I think that you get the Stormwing Hexagrammaton through the Apothecaries. I can see what he's doing there, and then he put Dreadwing on the troop choices. I think that that makes sense. It makes them more survivable that way. The Apothecary works well. But I just think that I think it slows you down as well as the opponent. But actually, I think the list is a solid list. My only concern is around his close combat. What are your thoughts from everything you've just heard there? What are your thoughts?
Well, I think the fact of the matter is, right, I think David's already done well summarizing and kind of understanding what his shortcomings are. I think it showed a good amount of kind of intelligence to kind of sort of know that the fact of the matter is, right, you can create a list that is jack of all trades, master of none, and it's going to do well-ish against some things and not struggle too badly against others. And I think what he's really done is kind of leaned into the theme a little bit. I think it'd be interesting to see, because it's also 2,500 points as well, right? Like you would naturally think if this were 3,000 points, you'd have a Praetor as opposed to Delegatus with a unit of Cenobium, and that would kind of help along a little bit. But I think that like as an example, my Sons of Horus list would have an absolute field day against this.
Because the moment they're in combat, I think
the moment in combat, the whole thing just falls down. And it's not even in combat. Like, I think what he's obviously looking to do is, if there's any potent combat threats on the board, he can slow them and deal with them. It's those potent combat threats that aren't on the board that come down from Deep Strike and just mess things up. But the fact of the matter is, right, you're going to have an Achilles heel somewhere, and I think that's just what this list is. I really like the list. I think it's had a lot of thought going into its design.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree with that.
And I think it's got a plan. And I think that's always, do you know what? I don't think you ever win or lose a game in list building, but I think that having a list that works and synergizes with a bit of a plan is really going to give you a bit of a leg up.
Yeah, I think so. I actually really like this list for a Dark Angels list. It seems quite fluffy. The 2 things I might change in order to kind of deal with some of the things we said is I would lose the last kind of squad, and I would put I would swap those out for a squad of Deathwing, and I would give your
Deathwing companions.
yes, and I'd put them with the Delegatus, and I'd maybe give them jump packs. So your Delegatus and your Deathwing, if they can, I'm sure they can take jump packs still. But if fingers crossed they can take jump packs. But I'd have to double check that. If not, I'd just maybe walk them across the board. And if you wanted to, you could always deep strike them. You could replace that Master of Signals with a Warmonger, and then deep strike them down. So you've got a deep striking Delegatus with some Deathwing, and I would get rid of the solid shots on the Leviathan, and I would change that for a double melter lance, because that gives him melter, which he hasn't got any of. He's got lots of las cannons, but he hasn't got a lot of melter. But also that deals with multi-wound Death Stars. So just Darren would just basically just disintegrate, and you could have that Leviathan walking around with those two dreadnoughts, and then taking on those Death Stars. If you wanted to keep the list as is, I think that would be the way I would do it. But I think, exactly as you said, the biggest risk that he runs is the moment a close combat heavy army gets in, it's going to disintegrate. I think.
Yeah, it's just going to fucking fall apart like wet tissue paper, isn't it? But at least he's realised that, and I think accepts that that's the risk, right? And I think that's in itself is absolutely fine.
But saying that, Dave, great list, really thematic, lots of thoughts gone into it. I'd struggle to play against this, I think, with the list that I currently run and have. But it definitely is a super 2.0, leverages all the right rules.
Yeah, it's good. It's been really well thought out. It really fits the theme really nicely. Like I would look at this arm on the table and think, yeah, this is Heresy.
Yeah, awesome. Nice work.
Yeah, and thank you so much, Dave, for taking the time to write it out and send us a lovely email and send it all in. If you would like to send us any lists or any correspondence, especially stuff where it talks about how nice we are, then you can email heresyhammer30k@gmail.com, and I promise we will read it and get back to you. Cool. Right. Are we ready? Are we going to take a small break and then? I
think let's take a break here, and then we can go and talk about some Siege of Cthonia, I think.
Oh, love it. Cannot wait.
Awesome.
Welcome back from that advertisement. I'm sure you had a huge amount of fun. It's now time to get into the meat and the potatoes of today's episode. And by meat and potatoes, I obviously mean steak and chips. So we're going to be covering the two legions that received the big rules updates, or additions, should we say, in the book, which are the Sons of Horus and the Imperial Fists. So,
John, just before we get started,
yes,
if you are a non-Sons of Horus and Imperial Fist players, the opposite of me and you, basically, do you think you'd be annoyed that your legion did not appear, considering the amount of love? Because that's something I've seen, right? Lots of people just being basically rolling their eyes so far back that they go into a stroke. That Imperial Fists and Sons of Horus have got even more love. And there are lots of legions that are dwindling on the sidelines. Iron Warriors, for one, Raven Guard, Iron Hands, who are missing models, missing characters. What's your general thoughts on that?
So I'm very torn, I think, because on one hand, I would have to agree a little bit, especially from not necessarily the kind of the rules updates, but maybe the miniature support potentially.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think it's got to be coming, right, hasn't it? So I think
it feels that way. Yeah.
Yeah, I think if I'm being honest, I think that this book has done a really good thing of just not breathing life or reinvigorating necessarily, but just kind of keeping that impetus going.
Yep.
Like re-engaging with certain people. I mean, let's be honest, the fists have been a staple for years and years, and they are already a well represented legion in terms of miniature support.
Mhm.
And from a rules perspective, I think we all agree they probably rank as kind of one of the stronger legions. I think
Yeah.
the Sons of Horus needed a little bit of a sort of a tickle just to kind of help them
Yeah.
along, which they've kind of got in a little bit of a flavour. But I
Yeah.
do like the fact that there has been some degree of care and attention paid to not only bring other legions into the narrative, but also with things like the Inducti and the Decurions. I think there is, in theory, something for everyone in this book.
Yeah.
What my hope is the fact that obviously we'll see some of those gaps plugged as we kind of move on through the next sort of
Yeah.
6 to 12 months. And I'm sure, you know, let's be honest, if this is successful, there's going to be another campaign book. So
Yeah.
I think, you know, if we look at what has happened with, say, Adeptus Titanicus and Necromunda,
Yeah.
as two of the other games that in theory don't, you know, Heresy receives like full studio support. It's the third game, like it, and it really has, I think, cemented itself as the third game in Games Workshop's kind of core range. But let's look at games like, you know, Necromunda has received so much support, and it's taken a bit of time, but they've kept that rolling and kept that kind of well. So I think if we can look at AT and Necromunda as kind of good examples of how they've managed to keep the player bases engaged and kind of develop things. Look, you're never going to please everyone,
No.
and at the moment you're going to please some people, right? So I personally am not too pissed off about it.
I had heard that this was meant to be due quite soon after the release of the box set, and as a result, that would make sense, right? That you would have quite soon after a box set that's basically dedicated towards Sons of Horus and Imperial Fists, and then this book comes out quite soon afterwards, and that there was a delay essentially. I don't know what that delay was, but there was a delay in getting this book out. This book was meant to be months and months and months ago. So from that perspective, I think that having such a time lag between those two just basically made it seem like the only legions that they care about is Sons of Horus and Imperial Fists. But that's fine for us because we love those legions. But I think that, as you say, clearly more is coming. But it's just been perhaps not as quick, particularly for those legions that don't have named characters, as those people would probably like.
I think also as well, right? We've the last 3 years when it comes to Games Workshop as a business, like the release schedule across, if you look at across their release schedule, it's just been relentless.
Yeah,
there's just stuff after stuff after stuff. I think if we'd have been just talking about this now 10 years ago, like when we were in the throes of the Black Books, for instance, we'd be thrilled to have the release schedule that we've currently got. And I think we've just been a bit conditioned just to kind of expect a lot quite quickly.
That's a good way to describe it. Yeah, that's a good way. And I guess like you've got from this book, you've got a whole new way to play, which is Mortalis.
Yeah.
So if your legion,
absolutely.
So if your legion wasn't strong in, or you feel like your legion isn't strong in frontline games, you know, in shooting, and you feel like you're more of a close combat orientated army, you know, I can feel many World Eaters players being like, oh, I've struggled in those frontline games. You've basically got a new way to play, and you will probably do better than shooting lists because of the nature of ZM. So I guess the other thing you could say is that actually there's a whole new game within this book that might give your legion a buff that you've been hoping for through special characters or warlord traits or rights of war or whatever. Try ZM, because to do it now is actually relatively cheap because of the plastic ZM kits. So give that a go, and then if you're still unhappy, then you gotta get back to us if you're an Imperial Fist and Sons of Horus player. But I think it's just worth a note, right?
Yeah, it's a whole new world, right? And I think that I think we just maybe need to exercise some patience a little bit with certain stuff. I mean, I'm only a very recent Sons of Horus. No, I painted up and built a Sons of Horus army at what turned out to be a very opportune time.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think even if I was still very much in the throes of playing my Iron Warriors week in, week out, I'd still feel happy. Like I'd
Yeah.
still be adding a Decurion into my list. I'd
Yeah.
definitely be
Okay. Yeah.
Dark Tie. So I'd be definitely looking forward to playing some ZM. So I think that
Yeah.
I think it's all about perspective, right? And you know, it's obviously going to be very opinion based, and some people have got very strong opinions about their legions and how they're sort of pitched or how they feel like they're being treated. But I think just fucking get over yourselves and just enjoy what we've got, because I'm sure it's going to be coming. And it's
Yeah.
With a lot of these things, right? If this is a success, then there's going to be the appetite from a
Yeah.
business to want to create more, right? So
Yeah. Absolutely. Well,
right.
who were we talking about and what we're talking about next?
So you'll have known from listening to the or watching the lore video that Robin Lee did that the book is centered around two main protagonists. There are actually quite a lot of protagonists that exist within the book, right? But the two main protagonists are our two new characters, who are Lord Castellan Evander Garius, and the first Reaver Varen Asheradan for the Sons of Horus.
Cool models. You have these models as well, right? You've.
I don't have Garrus anymore. That project went out.
You stole
immediately.
That
I got caught up in the pre-order fever. But
they got you. They fucking got you. But Varen looks. I mean, the paint job you've done of him was amazing. But even when he was unpainted, he looked fantastic. Like
he's such a good miniature. And again, like I had the fortune of having created a Reaver based army, and he is King Reaver.
Yeah.
So I mean, this again, like just can slot straight in. And I think I had mine built and painted within 36 hours of him turning up at my door. Like I don't want to say it was a world first, but it's probably a world first. So if you want to check out what I did with him, I've got some pictures up on my Instagram, which is d6_miniatures. But he's fucking wicked. I think when I first saw the model, I was a bit like, oh, he's kind of cool, but maybe a bit busy. Truth be told, I don't think the studio paint job did him loads of favors. I painted him predominantly black, and he looks so much more menacing in all black than he does in the green and black sort of two-tone.
Yeah, it's interesting. I models aside, awesome backstories, awesome characters. We did a kind of big character analysis of them. But my opinion is that Sons of Horus are, out of the Imperial Fist and Sons of Horus, I think the Sons of Horus are big winners from this book.
Oh, huge.
Because of him, but also because of the Inducti rules as well. Now, we won't go and talk, we might be able to talk about the Inducti rules for Sons of Horus a little bit later, but it feels to me like because I have felt quite strongly they're in this weird place where Sons of Horus players, if you were a Sons of Horus 1.0 player, basically you had to rebuild your army from the ground up because they were a close shooting army. They were quite a lot about close combat, but basically they were a close quarter shooting army to completely transformed into a close combat force. So lots of Sons of Horus players are just kind of scratching their head with the models that they had. But I think Varen, combined with the Inducti, gives them a much needed close combat boost that they needed. And because I think that Sons of Horus players defaulted to just airing as the automatic thing that would ensure that their list had enough punch. But I think that the Varen's rules, what he does for Reavers, and combined with the Inducti, and I think after our Tactica video, I genuinely believe that the Sons of Horus Inducti are the best out of these. Like
I agree. I think on paper they look strong, and then when we sort of delved into things a little bit, we kind of came up with kind of like a bit of a podium.
Yeah.
But I think when we revisit the Inducti Tactica over on the Patreon, we're going to be looking a lot more about synergies and how you build these into your list and how you get the most from them. I think that even then, like the Sons of Horus one is still so obvious.
Yeah, and I've used them in close combat. I've used them, in ZM, and they're brilliant. They're so good. Yeah, they're fantastic. Anyway, that's enough.
Before we get on to that, we're going to have to talk about the Imperial Fist because they come first numerically, right? So, okie doke. So, what we found in the book is the fact that both legions got a little bit of kind of love from a couple of new pieces of war gear, or actually, in the case of Sons of Horus, a kind of slightly refined piece of war gear and some new warlord traits. So, they've both got some new warlord traits. which kind of gives us a bit of a different way to play, new character, and some new war gear. So,
Yeah.
The Ferromag shotgun, this came out of absolutely nowhere.
Yeah. I love what they do when they have a new war gear or a new tank, and then a book that comes alongside it, which is that thing is mentioned a number of times in the new book. And this shotgun is mentioned a number of times in the Siege of Cthonia story, which I think is quite interesting. But it's pretty good.
Yeah,
it's pretty good.
Fucking
It's
unreal, right?
Yeah.
So, any model with a Legion only to start his Imperial Fist special rule may exchange and a Starty shotgun for a Ferromag shotgun at no additional points cost.
Yeah.
So the weapon here is also counted as an auto weapon for rules that affect such weapons. And what affects auto weapons, Rob?
+1 BS.
So good. So it's close range, as you'd expect from a shotgun, only 10-inch range, but it's strength 5 AP4, it's assault 1, and it's breaching 6 up.
Yeah. I mean, it's the breaching 6 up, which is just so useful. And strength 5, you're basically holding a heavy bolter, aren't you? That's also, I mean, it's not as many shots, but it's like a close quarters heavy bolter that's also breaching. Whether you take units that have lots of shotguns or not, I don't know. Whether you will specifically create a unit to have the Ferromag shotgun, I don't know. I do think, though, in ZM, I think it's quite thematic and probably would be quite useful as well.
Oh, I totally agree, right? So the access to shotguns is not that limited. It's just not often taken.
You don't see them a lot. No, you don't see them because they're basically kind of like there are other better weapons to take, right? That's the thing. But I think shotguns have concussive. So concussive 1, do they?
They do. Yeah.
So you're losing concussive 1 for basically breaching 6 up. So it just depends on, if you've got the concussive, you're probably synergizing some assaults. And having assault forces running in parallel. But if you're just going for the breaching 6 up with the Ferromag shotguns, then I guess you're just all about kind of like murder and mayhem and destruction and kind of shooting your opponents down like dogs in the street, I guess. So
ideal. Could not have gone better that. Cool. So we've also got 2 new warlord traits. Why don't you read to us Unforgiven?
Yeah. So this is an interesting one, the Unforgiven one, because I suppose it links to Evander Garius, but Garius has his own
warlord trait. Right?
Own warlord trait. So it's loyalist only. Maybe we should read the fluff on this one, actually. I think it might be good just to put it into context. So those Imperial Fists that earn the ire of Rogal Dorn face a harsh fate, for their primate was not given to forgiveness or understanding, and those warriors of the Legion that failed to live up to the lofty standards found themselves discarded. So basically those who've been kind of driven away from Rogal Dorn because they were naughty boys. This is a warlord trait. So warlord trait. While locked in combat with an enemy that includes the enemy warlord or a unit that includes models such as a Primarch, a Dreadnought, Super Heavy, Knights, Titans, a warlord that has this trait that suffers instant death for any reason is not immediately removed as a casualty, but instead loses D3 wounds. Furthermore, while locked in combat with any enemy units, a warlord with this warlord trait gains the Fearless special rule, but must always declare a charge if enemy units is within 12 inches. And he also gets an army whose warlord has this warlord trait does not gain any bonus reactions for this warlord trait as well. So basically, you get kind of a semi-fearless, and you don't suffer instant death. You lose D3 wounds instead. It's all right. I think that if you're against a Primarch, I don't think you need to. I think you're probably going to die anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. Rolling lots of D3s is still quite a lot.
Yeah, and I think that if you're against a Knight, this doesn't get around the stomp attacks, for example, at the end. You just get removed off the board. Same
problem you've got with Imperial Fist, right, is it's better than Solar Marshal?
And that's the loyalist, and that's the problem because that's loyalist only. Is it better than Solar Marshal? No, basically. So it's quite thematic, I think, if you're trying to play a campaign or you've got a force which is like, being driven away by Dawn because he's just fucked off with you. But the obvious one to take, especially around the loyalists only, is Solar Marshal, and it's not better than Solar Marshal. It's not better. So
no. And we've also got another one which isn't locked into loyalists only, even though the fluff seems very loyalist driven, but is bound for glory. So the Imperial Fists number some of the oldest veterans of the Great Crusade amongst their ranks, warriors that have fought for the Emperor since the beginning of the Great Crusade. They've fought in uncounted battles, slain countless foes, and stood alongside each of their brother legions in battle on numerous battlefields. For those veterans, the Horus Heresy is a tragedy beyond compare. For it has turned once loyal companions and allies to terrible and merciless foes. So, the controlling player of a warlord with this trait may select a single variant of the Legion Astartes X special rule other than Imperial Fists at the start of the battle before any models are deployed onto the battlefield, but after all players have selected their armies. So, if you've got an allied detachment, etc. The warlord with this trait and all models in a unit has joined gain the Fearless special rule when locked in combat with an enemy unit that includes one or more models with this variant of the Legion Astartes X special rule, but may not choose to make a sweeping advance against an enemy unit that includes one or more models with that variant of the rule.
Ooh, okay. We'll just stop there. So I think if you're pairing this with a Cataphractii Praetor, Cataphractii Delegatus, Cataphractii Champion, that's where this comes into their own, I think, and like a Cataphractii Command Squad, because they wouldn't be able to sweep anyway. So that, use that. You don't want to not sweep, so put it on a unit or put it on a warlord that can't sweep, and then basically you just get Fearless, which is great.
And you get an additional assault phase reaction. Whoop-de-doo.
That's not bad. It's not better than Solar Marshal, but
it's different.
But Fearless is not bad. That's pretty good. I could really see, a Praetor is weapon skill 6 anyway, right? And then weapon skill 6 plus Fearless, I think it's going to be really great, especially if you're taking Terminate Command. So I think that this would really synergize well with Huskars. Huskars and your Cataphractii leader. I think they're fearless. They've got battle hardened when they get charged. But
Huskars are stubborn, right?
But then they're still stubborn leadership 9, right? You can still fail.
Yeah, you can. Yes, you can. And I do.
So. Yeah, and that's the thing. Yeah, that's not bad. Yeah, I think that's Bound by Glory, pretty good.
Okay, so you might see these taken, but probably more likely Bound for Glory than Unforgiven.
Yeah, agreed.
If you're not just going to take Solar Marshal with Huskars, right?
Yeah.
And then we've got Evander Garius himself, the Lord Castellan, the Butcher of Larasan, the Tyrant.
So look at this entry. Like when you compare it to Ralderon's.
Yeah, fucking hell.
It's fucking ape shit.
Why don't you take us through Evander Garius and I'll save myself for the Master of the True Sons.
So we've got something here that is basically equivalent points-wise to Abaddon, right? So I think that's a good comparison to be making. The most notable things about him is that he's 4 wounds. He's got toughness 5, and that's just great. Basically, only strength 10 can double that, which is pretty rare in the Legion list. And he's got leadership 10. He's got a 2-up save and a 4-up in vulnerable save. We'll get back to that in a bit though, because he's got the Tyrant's Regalia. He's heavy because he's in Cataphractii armor. Essentially, he's stubborn 10. That's brilliant. Adamantium will 3-up, and then a whole host of rules. Now I'll come to his warlord trait in a bit. We'll go back to the warlord trait. So his weapons. So he's got a super fancy power fist. So it's called the Subjugator. Strength 8, AP 1. So good. It's unwieldy, brutal 2, which is fucking apeshit. So it's strength 8, brutal 2. So it's basically a thunder hammer, right? And then reaping blow on top of that. But it's a thunder hammer that's AP 1. He's got a underslung on, I guess under his left wrist. Got an underslung kind of Volkite weapon. So it's range 15, strength 5, AP 5. What would you expect for something like this? But it's assault 5. That's a whole load of shots. It's deflagrate and radphage as well. So if you can manage to get some of those off and it doesn't manage to outright kill a model, that model will be -1 toughness for the remainder of the game. So yeah, not bad. I mean, the fact it's 5 shots is pretty decent. Tyrant's Regalia. So confers a 2-up, 4-up in one save, and in addition, Evander Garius has the Feel No Pain 5-up special rule against wounds suffered during any fight subphase. And I think what's really important there, John, is that basically he, against Power Fist and Thunderhammer attacks, he now has a Feel No Pain because they're not doubling him out because of the toughness 5. So, and then you've got that damage mitigation on top of that. So he's really resilient. Like a super resilient character who can like knock out some pretty impressive sort of Thunderhammer AP1 hits as well. Unfavored Sun, so he may never be selected as part of attachment that also includes Rogue Dawn. But basically, it's a bit confusing this. But I think that if you're playing in a doubles game where your partner is also Imperial Fist and has Rogue Dawn, and then you are playing with the Vandagaria, so if he's in a combat with Rogue Dawn fighting alongside him, he gains Fearless and it will not die as well. But Rogue Dawn can't be in the same army detachment as him. So the only way I can foresee that happening is that somebody else needs to be running Rogue Dawn. So the unfavored Sun really is only a rule that you need to worry about if you're playing.
It's nice that it's there, but it's just unlikely to come up. That being said, it does make him even more of a fucking king shit dick kicker.
And all of that, we haven't even come to his Warlord trait. So the Butcher of Larasan. If at the start of any player turn, the opposing player has scored more victory points than Garius controlling player, then Garius and all models in a unit he has joined gain the Rage 2 special rule. Furthermore, whenever an opposing player scores victory points by causing a unit from the same faction as Garius to entirely be removed as casualties, the Lord Castellan of the Garius controlling player may choose to roll a d6. If the final result of that roll is a 6, then the number of victory points scored is reduced by 1. So basically, if it's a kill point mission, and then you get that kill point for destroying one of Garius's units, Garius rolls a d6, and he rolls 6. He's like, "Fuck you! You didn't get any kill points for that." So that could be quite important. It's on a 6, right? But quite cool. And then, in addition, an army that has Garius as its warlord may make an additional reaction in the assault phase. Pretty good.
Pretty good, right?
I think that Sigismund, he's comparable to Sigismund, certainly comparable to Abaddon, and he's an absolutely brilliant character. I think you will see a lot of him in games of Horus Heresy if you're playing Brewfist. I would definitely take him over Sigismund. I think he's a cooler character.
I think everyone's sick of seeing Sigismund as well, right?
Yeah,
I think Sigismund belongs in a Templar Brethren army now. Now that you can run Templar Brethren as an army standalone, I think other than that, leave him at home. If you're running Stone Gauntlet, take Pollux. If you're running standard kind of run of the mill fists, take this guy.
I think
they're the rules. They're the rules we've laid out for everyone else to follow now.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, I think he's a really cool character. Real. He's
got a great story for someone that's a bit of a fucking do-gooder as well, right? Then he's got a great backstory. So wonderful. So I wrote a little list as well. So Rob tasked me with writing a couple of lists up, one for each legion, and this is largely based around playing the Cthonia missions. So I've gone for kind of quite a bit of scoring and bit of an all-rounder. So we've obviously got Garius as our starting point. Can't really not have him, can we? He's got a chosen command squad with him.
Yep. Is it a Cassifraxi command squad?
Oh, absolutely, Cassifraxi command squad. Yep. Okay. So I need to sort of zoom in a little bit here. Do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to zoom in on my telephone instead, which is where I've written it down. So I've used the Quartermaster app to put these together because, and I'll be honest with you, I hate the way Battlescribe presents things afterwards. So we've got 5-man command squads. We've got 4 Vigil Pattern Storm Shields. We've got 2 Thunderhammers, 2 Solar Power Gauntlets, and Teleportation Strike.
Can you buy that though on Evander Garius?
No, but the command squad can, and attach him to it, and therefore they can all deep strike. Correct?
Are you sure about that? I don't think that's true.
I thought it conferred the rules to independent characters.
We will find out about that. I will. You talk through the list, and I'm gonna find out. You talk through the list. Go on.
Anyway, and then we've got a Standard Bearer who's also got a flag and a Solar Power Gauntlet. We've got in the troops slots. Hold on a second. We've got no other HQs. That's literally just it, by the way. It's just
Okay,
him and
cool. Yeah.
his mooks. We've got 2 7-man scout units. They've all got Ferromag shotguns.
Oh, that's good. I like that a lot. That's really cool. That's good.
So they're your sort of forward scouting units. They're going to sit at the front and they're going to plink away at dudes, hoping for those breaches. We've then got 3 identical 10-man tactical squads in Rhinos. So Sergeant's got 2 up save. They've got a Vexilla, and then the Rhinos have got a pintle-mounted Iliastus assault cannon and searchlight. So 3 of those. So they're your other scoring units to sort of jump onto objectives. And we know in these games that we got short turns and progressive scoring. So away we go, basically. The idea is they'll jump up, hopefully get on those objectives first turn and start scoring those. We've got a Castaferum Talon Dreadnought with 2 Gravis las cannons and a helical targeting array for a bit of sort of fire support. I didn't want to go down the las cannon route because I don't like it, to be honest with you. And we've got 8-man Tartarus Terminator squad, which has got 5 Vigil Pattern Storm Shields, an assault cannon, 2 Thunderhammers, 3 pairs of 3 Solar Power Gauntlets, 2 pairs of Lightning Claws. The Sergeant has got a Vigil Storm Shield and a Solar Power Gauntlet, and the unit has got a Teleport Transponder.
Okay. You can have that. You're allowed that. Yeah, I'll come back to the command squad in a bit. But
yeah. We then got 3 apothecaries to dive into the tactical squads to keep them alive. So jump them out onto the objectives. Heart of the Legion plus the apothecary is the plan.
That's good.
In the heavy support slots, we have got a Sikaran Punisher squadron.
Yes.
The squadron is led by Decurion Locus.
I like that. I like it.
Okay. So as we've said, we're going to cover the Decurions in a lot of depth over on the Patreon. So look out for that Tactica video coming soon. So we've got 2 Punishers to leverage the Imperial Fist's Legion rule. And also to leverage the Locos's rule as well. And then each one has 2 Sponson mounted Iliastus assault cannons. Because assault cannons.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah.
And then we've got a Leviathan Pattern Siege Dreadnought who has got a Melter and Claw, 2 Assault Cannons, and a Phosphex Discharger, and he is in a Dreadnought drop pod.
I really like that. That's a really cool list. Like, I love all the new gear that the Tech Marines have kind of given to them, and I think it leverages loads of the rules that we've got from the new book. Now, I want to come back to this command squad. So Garrus doesn't have deep strike, does he?
No.
But nor does it confer, because basically with a command squad, what happens is, or with anybody in Terminator armor, so Casperati Terminator armor, Tartarus Terminator armor, you can buy teleport transponders for them for the unit, right? But I think the problem with Evander Garrus is that he's not actually in Casperati armor. He's in Regalia Resplendent. So you can't ever buy him a teleport transponder because it also doesn't confer onto Garrus, from my understanding.
Okay.
Which is why you've got to buy the Warmonger, right? You can't just, so...
Well, there you go. We could happily lose some scouts. Are you one of the units of scouts for the Warmonger?
Yeah, from a Warmonger, and then I think you'd be away. I think.
Okay. So the idea being is the fact that, or maybe even lose a couple of the Tartarus, maybe bring those down to like a 6-man or a 5-man. We've got the points to play with anyway. So because the Decurion Locus has also got a Nuncio Vox, so he can make their.
Oh, okay. He comes with it.
With it.
That's good. Yes, a good
Or
list.
Scan on a box. So
if you're thinking about doing Imperial Fists, use this list. This is great.
Yeah. So I think we've got a bit of everything there. Like we've not got like a huge amount of range anti-tank. We've got the Leviathan, and then we've got the the Box Dread with the twin las.
Yeah.
Two Gravis las, I should say, sorry. But also you've got a fair amount of like close combat punch. Like you've got you've got fists, you've got solar power gauntlets, you know, you've got plenty of other things to deal with it. You've also got a lot of assault cannons. Yeah. So to sort of fish for some wrens.
Yeah, I like that. I think it's good. It's good anti-infantry list, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. I'm happy.
That's brilliant. Well done. Should we have a look at the Sons of Horus now?
Let's do it. So they've got a little tickle with their Kassoran power weapon. So the Kassoran power axe hasn't changed.
Right, and that was sort of what I was going to ask you, because I'd seen somebody say that it had changed, and I was like,
I don't think it has changed.
I'm pretty sure that's not changed now. No, I don't think it has.
So the Kassoran power axe is as it was. So I believe it's as it was. Why don't you double check us while I run through? I think
I certainly will.
Just for our own benefit. Yeah. So anyone can take it. Basically, anyone who can take a power axe can switch it for a Kassoran power axe now. So a Kassoran power axe is strength as user, so no strength bonus, but it is AP3 standard, 5 up melee breaching, and specialist weapon. Now, the Kassoran power tabor is a low key, massive upgrade for Just Aaron.
Yeah, huge. This is fucking apeshit. A breaching 4-up weapon, it's with +1 strength.
The thing with Just Aaron is the fact that they have 3 attacks in their profile.
Yeah,
out of the box, right? So, but you also they can't switch out their Bane Strike Combi Bolter, which is not a specialist weapon. So you can't end up in a situation where you can ever give them 2 attacks for having 2 weapons.
Yeah.
What you can now do is you can give them a Kassoran power tabor.
I don't know where their combi bot goes, but essentially they have
in their pocket.
Yeah.
So the Kassoran power tabor is strength +1. So typically on a Just Aaron, it's gonna be strength 5, AP3, but it is breaching 4 up and it's going at initiative.
It's so good, and Just Aaron have Furious Charge. So really, it will be strength 6 if they
do a Furious Charge. And in the Black Reaving Rite of War, they also have Rage 2.
There you go.
So
like this is the weapon. This is the weapon. This is it. So good.
Absolutely. So what am I going to be doing this evening? I'm going to be ripping all of my power axes or Kassoran power axes off my Just Aaron and I'm just going to make the handle slightly longer, which is
that's it, right? Because it's just essentially a longer handled axe, isn't it?
Yeah, those people who are wondering, a Kassoran power tabor is an axe with a longer handle, so it's fine. Just add a little bit of piping onto the underside of your power axe, and you're all good. They also got 2 new warlord traits. So, do you want to talk to us about the True Sun, Rob?
I'd love to. I haven't seen any of these. I've not been particularly overwhelmed by their current warlord traits, so I'm looking forward to this. So, the True Sun.
Well, you say that. I think a lot of the time you often see Sons of Horus played quite often with special characters.
That's the issue.
You often get railroaded into just taking their own warlord traits, but you then got chosen the Dark Gods, which is the one that I think you would typically tend to take, which is the one roll a d6, on a roll of a 1 you lose a wound, on a roll of a 2 to 5 you gain +1 strength, +1 toughness, and a roll of a 6 you also gain a wound back.
Okay, cool. So it'd be interesting if that can compute this. So this warlord trait may only be selected by a model with the traitor allegiance, and may not be selected if the primary attachment of the army whose warlord it is selected for includes any models with the corrupted unit subtype or demon unit subtype. So basically, from what we did last time we met, the True Sons basically rejected kind of the Legion's decline into this kind of demonic, kind of subservient entity of the warp.
Much like a Baden did as well, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's basically that.
They're a warrior cult as opposed to a demonic cult.
Yeah. So a warlord with this trait gains a +1 to its leadership characteristic when taking morale checks and pinning checks, and all. That's interesting. So it'd be particularly good on Delegatus to Centurion, but you're going to be maxed out, I assume, with a Praetor. And all models with this from the same detachment that can draw line of sight to the warlord also gain this bonus to their own leadership characteristic when making morale or pinning checks. That is really, really good. That having that bonus is brilliant. Furthermore, a warlord with this trait may reroll any failed armor saves or invuln saves made against wounds inflicted by psychic weapons or psychic powers. That is pretty cool, actually.
It's cool.
So if you are about to play some Thousand Suns, you could be like, well, I'm going to take True Sun because I get to re-roll my invulns and saves.
And you might well be playing some Thousand Suns, given that they feature quite heavily in the campaign, right?
Exactly right. And then you gain an additional reaction during your assault phase. So some pretty cheeky rules. I don't think that's massively overpowered, but could be useful in certain scenarios. Yeah, I quite like it. I think that's good. I still think the Imperial Fists one, the second one that we read, was probably better on balance than the True Sum, but I think against some opponents this will be pretty good.
Right. Cast in gold. One of the most well-known traditions of the Sons of Horus, brought from the depths of Cthonia to the stars, is the taking of skulls, to be gilded in gold to immortalize the most challenging and worthy opponents. Rooted in the ferocious rituals of the deep Chthonian gangs, it had originated as a mark of respect, but during the long years of the Great Crusade, it would become something darker and more sinister. So basically, if you're in a challenge with someone who is equal to or greater than your weapon skill, you gain +1 strength and +1 attack for the duration of the challenge. In addition, if you slay someone in a challenge with equal to or greater weapon skill, you gain an additional victory point in addition to any of those offered by the mission objective. In addition, enemy army whose warlord has this trait may make an additional reaction during the opposing player's movement phase.
I quite like that. I think that's pretty good.
Yeah.
+1 strength, +1 attack. Yeah, I could
don't hate that at all.
useful. Especially if you're just a mook Sons of Horus Praetor against like some whizzy special character. I think that could really help you. Like a Paragon blade that's +1 strength, I guess, is super useful. An extra attack is really, really nice as well. So yeah, I think that's pretty good. That's not too shabby. Not amazing, not bad.
Still think you're going to take Chosen of the Dark Gods, though, I think, if I'm being honest with you.
That's the one.
Because then you can potentially get that and not be in a challenge.
Yeah.
Sons of Horus are mainly about bullying their opponents, not necessarily going toe to toe.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think if I saw Sevatar across the table, I think I'd be like, it's inevitable that I'm going to have to get into combat with this guy. So I might do casting gold.
I think, though, if Sevatar was to come at you, and especially if you were in a unit of, say, Reavers, you just constantly feed him Reavers whilst you absolutely kick the shit out of his unit. So,
okay.
But there you go.
I see. Yeah. Okay, cool.
Right. So they also gained the absolute mega badass in Varen Ashuradan, who is the cadre captain of the Sons of Horus, the first. Already in love with this guy. I cannot wait to use him in a game. Really can't. So he is movement 7, weapon skill 7.
Oh mama.
BS 5. Strength 4, toughness 4, 3 wounds because he's not in Terminator armor. Yep. Initiative 5, he's got 4 attacks, leadership 10, 2 up save.
I mean, should we dwell on this weapon skill 7? I mean, there are some Primarchs which are at weapon skill 7, right? You know, it just seems like so good.
You're likely to be hitting him on 5s.
Yeah.
Even if you're a special character or a Praetor, like you're likely to be hitting him on 5s. War gear wise, he's got the Axe Apprentice, Bane Strike, Fusillade, a close combat weapon, frag and crack grenades, and melter bombs, and Panoply of the Void. He's then fucking.
Why did they give that? They clearly gave him a close combat weapon because the model is holding a close combat weapon.
He's holding a shank.
Is that why? Yeah.
It's got to be, right? Fucking got to be. So I don't know. Yeah, why waste the words? He's then got a whole host of special rules. So he's Marshal of the Legion. He's relentless. He's battle hardened 1.
That is fucking amazing.
Yep. Precision shots 1. Precision strikes. Oh my fucking hell. Shots and strikes 6 up.
Yeah.
Counter attack 1. The first Reaver is obviously a traitor, and he has blood and honor as his warlord trait.
So loads of those rules are the same as the Reavers, right? Precision.
Yeah, correct. So precision shots, precision strikes, counter attack, all the same.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. And they are chosen warriors as well, Reavers as well. So
yeah.
So the Axe Serpentis is counted as a power weapon for those rules that affect such weapons. So strength as user, so only strength 4 standard, but has sudden strike 1, so he's initiative 6 on the charge.
Okay, that's pretty good.
Yep, and murderous strike 6 up.
Okay, so he's basically got a slightly less powerful Paragon blade. Is essentially what we're saying.
But it's also worth bearing in mind as well. It's not a specialist weapon.
So with his little knife,
His little knife.
he'll get an additional.
He'll get an additional attack. He's basically
So
got 5 attacks.
Okay, so 5, so 6 attacks on the charge.
7 attacks if he's in the Black Reaving Rite of War because he gets rage 2.
Okay, that's pretty good. And then, but you're losing the +1 strength. So you're going to be probably hitting on 3s most of the time, but wounding on 4s, depending on
He's a bit of a blender, but it's that Murder Strike 6 up that really does it.
Yeah, okay, interesting.
He's also got counterattack as well, so if he does get charged, he still gets.
Okay, yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point.
Bane Strike Fusillade, so it's essentially it's a Bane Strike Bolter. Apart from it's got short range, so it's range 10, strength 5, AP 4, pistol 4.
That's crazy. All these shots, these Tech Marines have been
and breaching 6 up.
Yeah, I mean that's anything that's breaching 6 up on a pistol weapon is bloody brilliant. Yeah,
fucking shit up, mate. Absolutely. His armor is the Panoply of the Void. So the Panoply of the Void grants Varen Ashuradan a 2-up armor save and a 4-up invulnerable save. In addition, any attacks made by enemy models as part of a shooting attack that target Varen on the unit he has joined, as long as the unit is not composed of it's composed of no more than 6 models after Varen has joined, count the range to Varen or his units 3 inches further than the actual range between the 2 units. So he's Alpha Liege in that regard.
Yeah, but so the unit can be no more than 6 models, right?
Correct.
So he's got to be a little unit to be able to make that.
Yeah. But Reavers, you can buy in 5s. So there you go.
Okay, yeah, let's see.
This special rule does not affect determine whether Varen or models in that unit hit by blast markers or unit with a template weapon special rule. That's
okay. So good if you're a smaller unit. Good if you're a little unit in ZM, maybe something like
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The first Reaver, a single attack Reaver attack squad, so not jump packy boys, but attack squad maybe selects his part. He can take a retinue basically. They can't have a flag, but he gets his own dedicated 5-man Reaver squad. Whoop-de-doo. They do gain line, but Reavers in Black Reaving Rite of War gain line anyway. And let's be honest, you're going to build this. You're going to build him around a Black Reaving Rite of War because...
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, though, John, because I would play my Sons of Horus slightly differently to you, I think. Because,
the boring way.
The boring way, which is that I quite like heavy support kind of options, mainly because I already have them for the Sons of Horus. And I don't want to buy or paint anymore. And one of the things that I've struggled with is the place of Reavers in a list that isn't Black Reaving.
Isn't Black Reaving? Yeah, I do get that. It occupies Reavers can get expensive. Now, obviously, in a Black Reaving, you can mitigate that by them being your troops' choices.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
So
I think that what I like about this is that the obvious option in a Proteus or a Spartan is your Warlord with some Justarian, if you're not deep striking them down. And what I quite like about this is that the Justarian are now no longer the automatic option when taking Varen, because you were probably taking your Justarian with a flag to gain line, but now Varen can take a squad of Reavers and also gain line as well. So for me, I would always run now Varen with a command squad of Reavers in a Spartan or a Proteus, and then not take the Black Reaving, because I find personally that Reavers are too many points when you start adding them en masse. They're not like individually, but once you start upgrading them to have like power fists and things like that, they can soon mount up in cost. And every one you lose, you're like, fuck, it's 30 points down the drain.
Just don't lose them. Easy answer.
Don't lose, but I think this is great. I think that this really opens up a lot of different options for Sons of Horus players outside of the standard of what we're seeing, which is just there in command squads.
When a wound, Warlord trait, Blood and Honor, when a wound is allocated to Varen by his controlling player, but not if the wound is allocated to him by the attacking player due to precision shots or precision strikes or sniper special rule, so bear that in mind. Yeah. While there are still other models in the same unit that the wound could be allocated to, then all failed and vulnerable saves made for Varen may be re-rolled. So, if you're being shot at by a las cannon team, he can tank all of those wounds. He's battle hardened, so he's going to die.
Yeah, and because it's re-rollable.
Re-rollable. Yes, thanks.
So it's basically it's slightly, I think, better. So it's a 3-up, right? Or maybe slightly better than a 3-up. It's like a 2-point something up. So yeah, it's great. And I think the other thing to consider here with the battle hardened, and I'm assuming this is right, which is that you would still get feel no pains if there's an apothecary attached because he's got battle
Correct.
hardened as well.
Absolutely. So you have
I
a 4 up, 4 up, 5 up.
Yeah, so I think that that's definitely something to consider. I think it's a brilliant rule, really cool, and really makes them really. You know how we were just discussing about how every Reaver is so expensive. This basically means you're able to tank some on Baron if you want to, and then kind of go like in that shooting phase to be able to get them there. And I think that is just so good. I think I love Baron. I think he unlocks so many options now for Sons of Horus.
Yeah. So. Furthermore, while Varen is part of a unit that includes a majority of models without the character unit subtype, then all models in the units gain the stubborn special rule.
Not bad. That's right.
Very, very. As an additional, that's excellent. I think that's fucking
great.
top tier. In addition, blah blah blah. Movement phase.
Yeah, that makes sense. Nice and fast, right? Get them up.
Yep, absolutely perfect.
Do you think so? He's at 205. And then Garrus is at 215.
Yep.
Which one do you think? It's difficult to compare life for life, but which one is better? Do you think Garrus?
I think Varen does more for the army, which I think is what tips him over the edge.
Right. Interesting. Yeah. Okay. The survivability is about the same, isn't it? Like one's got T5, one's got battle. Yep. It's probably better to have T5. Just on the whole, I think, rather than battle.
I think the thing though in a fight, let's talk about this as a fight, right? So in a duel, a challenge, one might even say, Baron gets to strike first. He's got loads of attacks. He's hitting on 3s. He's only wounding on 4s, but you only need a couple, one of those 6s, mate. One of those 6s to go through. Down he goes. But then again, who fucking knows?
They're pretty similar.
They're pretty evenly matched. They're both good. They're both really good. I think they're both worth their points as well. They're both like north of 200 points, which is like every time you get a character north of 200 points, you want them to be shit hot, and they are both shit hot.
Yeah, they're excellent. They're great additions for both Imperial Fists and Sons of Horus.
Absolutely. So I've also written an army list for this as well. So strap in. Varen is the warlord, obviously, with his own warlord trait. We've then got a Master of Signals because we're taking the Black Reaving Rite of War, contrary to Rob's unpopular opinion of 3 minutes ago. We are going to take the Black Reaving because it's thematically fucking excellent. So we have to, basically, the Master of Signals is the tax. We've then got a Warmonger. So the Warmonger's got a Kassoran Power Tabar.
Okay. I don't hate that. That's cool. Yeah.
So we've then got 2 units of Reavers. We've got, they're both identically equipped, which is the Chieftain has got 2 up save and a Power Fist. We've then got 2 Melter Guns, a single pair of Lightning Claws, and the rest of Chain Axes. So as we've discussed, Reavers can get, because you can make them really expensive. I mean, you can give them all lightning, like pairs of lightning claws, all power fists, power weapons, but they can get mentally expensive. So we've kept these reasonable. This is the exact loadout that I use in my army. I think it works really well.
Do you think? Just a quick question, an aside, if you will, John. So your melter guns, do you find that they're useful, most useful for basically nuking characters before you charge them? Or do you find that they're just good for turning tanks into molten slag? Or is it just a little?
It adds versatility because they can do both those things.
Okay.
Because they have precision shots and precision strikes, you can every so often get like a cheeky little.
Of course, yeah. Okay, yeah, I haven't considered that. That's pretty cool. Yeah.
Yep. So obviously you want to be careful about when you use them because you don't necessarily want to trigger like a return fire reaction against you. But at the same time, like I mean, I had a game the other day where like bam, 2 shots with my melter gun, 6, pop the apothecary out, and all of a sudden,
good. Yeah.
In we go, boys.
So much easier. Okay, that's
and
good.
obviously,
I haven't considered that. Yeah.
Yep. Like I've been banging on for ages, we want to leverage those additional charges, so we're proccing the Furious Charge, not the Furious Charge, the Rage. Sorry. So even the normal guys have got like 5 attacks each on the charge. Lightning Claw boys got 6.
Yeah.
Chieftain's got 5 of a Power Fist. It's all good. It's all gravy, baby.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, that's great.
We've then got 12 Legiones Astartes Inducti.
Oh, and we've talked about how they're fantastic.
Yep. 12 Inducti with chain axes.
Yeah, fantastic. And they get, so if you haven't watched our tactical video, or you've been living in a cave because you don't know the Siege of Cthonia book, basically within, I think it's 6 inches, isn't it, John? If they're within 6 inches of a unit that's weapon skill 5, they get Furious Charge and Rage.
Furious Charge.
And looking at John's list, all 3 of those HQs, the Reaver squads, the Reaver aggressors, and the Contemptors,
weapon
skill 5. So you've got loads of bubbles there, haven't you? That will interlock with one another to ensure that you're getting the most out of those despoilers.
Absolutely. We've then got 11 Reaver aggressors.
Yep.
So these are the jump pack boys, equipped exactly the same as the 10-man on foot squads, apart from the fact that there's just an extra guy and they have a chain axe. They'll obviously be deep striking.
Yeah.
You then got 3 apothecaries to go in the Reaver units.
Okay, so you've made them more survivable that way. That's clever. I wouldn't have considered doing that, but yeah, okay, that's clever.
And they've all got Kassoran power Tabars because why the fuck wouldn't you?
Oh, that's good. Okay, because they can take a power weapon, right? Usually.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got a Contemptor with 1 of each fist, chain fist, regular fist, melter guns in both.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, that's
again,
like
in Black Reaving, if you can get him into an already engaged combat or pop one of the javelins in there, then he's getting 2 additional attacks on the charge. Fucking absolute murder boy. We then got 5 assault destroyers. We've then got 2 Volkite Serpentas and 2 power weapons in that squad, so they'll be deep striking as well.
So, I'm assuming now to assume makes an ass out of you and me, but I am assuming that you want to pair those destroyers up with the despoilers in order to make the Sons of Horus despoilers basically instant death attacks. Essentially,
correct. Yeah, exactly that.
Oh, I like that. That's good, isn't it? That's really naughty. That's really naughty.
Yeah. So we've then got 3, the linchpin of the entire army. 3 individual jabs. Can't leave home without them. Genuinely.
Do you want to explain why? For context, you want to explain why they're so important?
The Black Reaving Rite of War grants any. So essentially, what it does is any unit that is charging a unit that is already engaged in combat or has been the subject of a charge that turn. Doesn't have to be a successful charge, just subject of a charge, gains Rage 2.
Got it.
So the idea is that the javelins fly up with their high movement. They'll declare a charge. Doesn't matter if they get in or not. It's not about that. It's not about that. It's about proccing that Rage 2. So basically, you spend the first turn setting it up, and the second turn, it all goes off. And the fact of the matter is, what you kind of almost hopeful they don't get in. If they do, they've got hit and run because they're javelins, so they can just piss off again.
Yeah, that's a really good point, actually. And even if you're just like 12 inches, all you need to do is just make sure you're 12 inches away to ensure that you can at least like get the charge.
Exactly.
The other thing I was going to say, John, about the spoilers. So not only do they get Furious Charge if they're within 6 inches of weapon skill 5 unit, they also get Rampage as well. So your despoilers,
of course, they get Rampage. Yeah.
Your despoilers get Rage 2. And
Furious Charge and Rampage.
And Rampage if there's a helicopter going over. But they get Rampage. So if they're charging a unit that they are outnumbered by, they would get 3 bonus attacks on the charge.
Which is strength 6 with Shred.
Which seems absolutely nutty.
Yep.
That's mad, isn't it?
So fucking good. So we've got the loadout that I use on my jabs, and I think this works pretty well. So we've got 1 with Twin Las, Pintle Multi-Melter, and Hunter Killer Missile, and then 2 with just the missile launchers, Pintle Mounted Multi-Melter, and Hunter Killer Missile. They're fucking so good. That 320 points is the best 320 points.
Yeah, they are excellent. Yeah.
I know.
Really, really good.
And then we've got 2 individual Proteus in the 2 heavy support options. 1 for the Inducti, 1 for the Reavers on foot. The other Reavers on foot go with Varen and the Warmonger. They deep strike. The Reavers, the aggressors, they deep strike, as do the Destroyers.
I like it. And you've done that on purpose, haven't you? So you've got 3 javelins in order to unlock the 2
Correct.
Proteus as well,
So
right?
yeah,
'Cause
the
you need
tax
more
on the
fast.
right of war is you can't have more heavy supports than you have fast attack.
Yeah,
So you're going to be limited by 2 whilst taking 3 fast attacks.
yeah. That's pretty cool. I really, really like that. And I guess an alternative for your fast attacks, if you were looking at building a Sons of Horus list, you could always take just the normal land speeders, like the retro land speeders. But
Yeah.
I think
Or the other thing you could take is like Sky Hunters with multi melters is another good
yeah, that's
option.
a good idea. Yeah, and just 3 little squads of those, and
Yep. Especially if you wanted to save some money as well, if you can track them down. You know, a
that's a
javelin
great point.
is
Yeah,
a mortgage these days.
yeah.
Whereas, you can pick up 3 Sky Hunters with multi melters for 30 quid if you can track them down. So
That's a really that's a really, really good point actually, John. I hadn't considered that. Like because one like javelin would basically be the equivalent cost of 9 jet
yeah,
bikes, right? From
yeah.
like element or
And
cryptic.
similar points cost as well, right? So
Yeah,
they could be
yeah, of
interchangeable. I think
course.
the javelins do a better job because they're more survivable.
Yeah, I think so.
But at the same time, like I had the javelins already, so from my perspective, it kind of like made sense.
Yeah,
And by the way, this is my army. The only thing that I would normally run is there are more Reavers in this army than I tend to run. My current
yeah,
army has a Baden and 5 Justarian.
yeah,
And I would normally run a Chieftain retinue as opposed to the Inducti, but the
yeah,
Inducti, like I'm banging them together pretty much as we speak. So
yeah. I mean, that's also an
and this army
interesting.
works and it's fun. It's really dynamic. It's a
Yeah,
really
that's
fun
great.
army to play.
I mean, that's the other consideration, which is that we talked about Verin and Reavers because it unlocks line, but you could always put them with Reaver chieftains,
Yeah.
and they would have line because they just come with a banner. They come with that 5 up in run save. They are heavy, so they will slow Verin down, but I think that it's
And they've also got 2 up saves as well. Don't forget they've got
yeah,
Artificer
so
Armor.
yeah, so
So
2 up, so they got 2 up, 2 up, 5 up, right? So
yeah.
that and that's great. I think that's a really cool list, John. I really really like it. I think that it kind of is a great list for this new edition, and I like the synergy between Despoilers and Assault Destroyers, and we'll kind of talk about that more in the tacticas that we do this month, about kind of good synergies for legions, because we've already gone through the Legion spoilers, and you can find videos online of people talking about Legion spoilers, but we want to kind of go into the nitty gritty of like synergies, what units works
Yeah,
well.
exactly. Turning up to 11. And Verin turns this army up to 11 really a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, it's
So
really good. Yeah, really
yeah,
impressed. I
you've
like it.
got 3 scoring units in there. So Quartermaster's done. So I think, if I remember correctly, the last FAQ as well, the Reaver aggressors also count towards. So the Reaver
They can
aggressors
be taken as
can be
troops,
taken as
right?
troops and gain
Yeah,
line.
yeah, yeah.
So you're going to end up with like three scoring units.
Yeah, it's good. I like it. Yeah, it's brilliant.
So
Yeah.
there you go, and lots of you got a bit of range anti tank with the 2 Proteus and
Have you
the
put
javelins as well.
additional las cannons on the Proteus as well?
I have, yes. I've got whole man twin las cannons, and searchlights.
So how many las cannons have you got in total? Like including with the do you
We've
have
got twin link one on. So we've got 2 on the javs, and then we've got the Proteus putting out their 5 shots. So 10, 12 las cannon shots a turn, 3 multi melters.
Yeah, that's I mean that's a lot of I mean it's a close combat list, but that's a lot of las cannons you've got
The
to deal with.
dreadnought can do work as well. He's got chain fist and 2 melter guns. So
Yeah. That's great. I love it. Love it, John. Brilliant, brilliant list. Absolutely brilliant.
cool.
Well
Thanks,
done.
mate. But like I said, I can tell you that this is fun and works because I own it. So there you go. And that kind of brings that part of the show to a close.
To an
Really.
end?
So
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
what are your thoughts? Again, discussing what we did earlier, and now kind of having gone through the stuff. What are what are your takeaways?
Yeah. So I think for me, I think that of all the legions, and I think that if we take the book as a whole, I think that I think it's easy to say this, but I think we take it the whole Zone Mortalis rules, missions, inducti, characters, all of it. I think that the Sons of Horus were the biggest winners out of the book. Um, Partly because of the inducti, but close combat army combined with ZM. Now we've got a full range of rules for that. Combined with Verin, I think that they were the big winners, and I think that this book will now allow Sons of Horus players to perhaps change their lists in ways that certainly that I was struggling with.
Yeah.
Previously. So I think, yeah, that's great. I think the book itself is fantastic. The story behind it's great. And anything that just adds a little bit more flavor to this list is great. I think the other great thing about the Legion Inducti, again, we'll talk about it more, because they're line and because the missions are progressive and all of them are objective based now, you basically kind of go, well, I might as well throw in a squad of Inducti because they're going to score. That will be useful for me. They'll add a bit of flavor to my list. And many of them are pretty good. I mean, some of them aren't. Raven Guard, fullback 7 inches instead of getting pinned. Yeah. But
Blood
many,
Angels
many of
didn't do
them
quite so
are.
well, but you know.
So it's great. How about yourself? What's your takeaways?
I think it's good. I like the direction that it's moving. Like, I think like there hasn't been like a complete and utter like what I think necessary when it says like new rules for Sons of Horus and Imperial Fist. I think a lot of people thought, oh fucking everything's going to get completely reworked. And what I think they've just had is again just added both. I think the Sons of Horus certainly had a bit of dynamism added to their list. I think a really fun and themey way to play. I think the Fists. They got a cool new character, and I don't think they really got, I think, but we haven't even touched on the Curians yet.
No, we haven't yet.
And that's something else that I think is going to be, if you've got like an armored spearhead right of war you want to run, like you've got something else cool to add into it. I just think there's a really good job. I think the book's presented nicely, there's some good artwork. Liked a couple more color plates in there, but fucking hell, I mean, like if that's the really thing I'm like nitpicking about, then then I think we've got to give the guys a bit of a pat on the back. I think the rules have been written well.
Yep.
I think the new stuff for ZM is so good, and there's some new proper missions which we haven't had in such a long time. And they've clearly taken a cue from the Heresy Hammer events by going progressive scoring. So it's nice to know that we're making a real difference to.
I genuinely think so, because we've been doing that for a year essentially, and then before that I was looking at it, greetings from the Warp events. So clearly it's percolated through. I mean, they still won't give us an early box set or anything, will they? But
so I just
clearly taking on our ideas for the missions.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hopefully the check's in the post, right? So. Anyway, speaking of that, thank you to these people for sending us their electronic checks in the email. So the Roll of Honor is celebrating our incredibly generous benefactors who subscribe to our Praetor level patron tier. Now, these people will be receiving all of the benefits of our Patreon, which include, but not limited to, 2 extra Tactica shows every month. All of our event productions, all of our kind of event packs and materials we produce for the events are also included for people to utilize free of charge. They're also getting with the champion tier or centurion tier, centurion tier, they're receiving the chance to win a model painted by one of us. So this time round I did the first one, which is a Death God Praetor for Walter, and you've just completed a librarian.
Yep.
For Igor. And obviously these people will be the first to receive our what are we calling him? Wall breaker.
Yes, that's right. That's a good
our wall destroyer.
Castle crusher.
Castle crusher. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But like
as a gift, they're receiving it
as a gift. As a gift.
For legal purposes.
As a reward.
Yes.
As a token of our gratitude.
Exactly.
But like I said, if you want to get hold of all the additional stuff we've been talking about and all the stuff that we've got coming up, especially all of those extra tactical videos where we're going to go into real serious depth on how to utilize this new stuff the best, then head over to patreon.com, search for Heresy Hammer, and you can subscribe for just £3 a month. Thank you so much. But special thanks to the following Chads, Chadettes, and others. Taranis, Andy Dudley, Stephen Daniel, Gareth Morris, Jack Stillwell, Lewis Hibbins, Mark Gallagher, Unexplained Miniatures, Matty Fuller, Ethan Brule, Big T Painting, Callum Falcus, Clayton Unruh, WH_ Black Panzer, Craig the Celt, Kevin Abramo, Brooks, Nicholas Drax, Andrew G, James, Apostate_ Terrain. Going to his event this weekend. Looking forward to seeing James. That Guy Lazar, Patrick Greenstreet, Mike Dorset Wolf, Richard Willis, Tom Hayward, Neil Atherton, Ben Robinson, Walter Cook the Fourth, Ben Ide, Gore Crow, Luke Callie EX, John McCardle, Thomas Silverstone, Saigon Sadler, Chris Levitt, Julian, Mark Ainsworth, Dale Barrett, Kerry Love, Alex Robinson, Tom Spear, Hammer and Nails 40k, Richard Harris, Chthonic Water Beast, Daniel McClelland, Simon Whitehouse, Peter King, Ashley Bowley, Pete Day, Al, Randy Overland, Igor Pofolotsky, and last but by no means least, Bradley Sloots.
52 top tier patrons.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we have to make the font smaller every single time. So, also thank you to our the remaining sponsors. So, Cryptic Cabin. If you'll have seen their advert in the break, but Cryptic Cabin supply. What do they supply, Rob? Everything, right?
Everything. Basically, if it's a hobby product you need, they've got it. The one thing I would say about Cryptic Cabin as well is that I'm hosting a kind of introduction to airbrushing seminar. I kind of said to them, look, you guys have done so much for us over the past year. Let me please come and do a kind of a 3 or 4 hour session for people who would like to know about airbrushing. So the 22nd of June. And if you want to come to that, you can't because the ticket's already sold out.
Oh, well, there you go. Fucking hell, what a massive shame. And you can use our referral link in the show notes, and that'll take you through and get you a bit of discount and some other bits and pieces. I also want to say big thanks to Beowulf Miniatures Printing. So obviously, Beowulf sorted us out with the first draft of the Wall Crusher, Castle Crusher, Wall Smasher. So again, if you need miniatures printing, then please head over to www.beowulfminiatures.com or Beowulf Miniature Printing on Instagram and Beowulf Miniatures Printing on Facebook.
I met Jack. We met him. He was at our last event.
And he came to Lee's event, didn't he?
Yeah, and he's coming to the next event. He had this amazing piece of terrain. Just gonna go before you go away for dinner, John. Amazing piece of terrain where you basically it's like a doorway, and it's got a slot that's big enough for your phone to slip, and then you kind of like find the YouTube kind of like mystery door kind of thing, right? So it looks like a Eldar webway or whatever. So it kind of looks like a portal for you to go through. It was an awesome piece of terrain.
That is absolutely mind-blowing.
Yeah, it was great.
Fucking hell. And I want to say an extra special thanks to our latest rogue trader, who is Curtain Games and Oakhampton Games. So Tim and Andrew and the guys who run Curtain Games, I've known for a long time. We actually used to play at the same gaming club back when I lived up near London. And I've followed them down to the West Country. But if you are in the Southwest, then please do check out Curtain Games. So they've got 2 retail stores, one in Crediton in Devon and one in Oakhampton. They've got event spaces in both, but they also run a lot of events. So they've got events going all the time. And that's not just for Heresy. So I went to their latest Heresy event 3 weeks ago, had a great time. Like 2.5K, 1 day, 3 games, top tier. It was absolutely brilliant. They've got a lot of Heresy products on the shelves, but they also run events for Necromunda, Titanicus. They do a big 40k event, a big Age of Sigmar event. Yeah, they're just wicked. Yeah, if you're in the area, then do check them out. Follow them on Instagram at Curtain Games and Curtain Games on Facebook, and they've got pretty active like kind of gaming community and club as well. So check those bad boys out. Lastly, if you want us to critique, we never critique, we always just absolutely love it. Praise your work on Instagram and then show it on the show. Then tag your photos with hashtag HeresyHammer over on Instagram. Please, if you've listened through this far and you've not already bothered to do it, then give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, give us a comment and share it amongst your friends, families, colleagues at work. People that you just randomly come across on the street, anyone who will listen, tell them about us because it really, really helps. If you've got a list or anything you want to kind of put down in writing, then you can send us an electronic mail to heresyhammer30k@gmail.com. And for the very last time today, if you would consider supporting us and getting additional Heresy Hammer, plus a chance to win free stuff, plus now cool miniatures that we're producing, then head over to the Patreon at patreon.com/heresyhammer and subscribe from just £3 a month. Rob, anything else to add before we go and put together Inducti?
No, but everyone have a great rest of the month. If you don't subscribe to us on Patreon, of course that is because we won't see you until next month because this is our second video of the month. But if you are on Patreon, then we will see you in a week's time.
Yeah, absolutely stuff. And if you're coming to the next Actium event as well in 2.5 weeks.
Looking forward to seeing you guys there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think is Lee going to be there on the Sunday?
I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think he's coming to this one.
Oh, never mind. Don't worry about it. Lee's the worst one anyway. So I'll be there. I'm going to be Rob's ringer. So if someone doesn't turn up on the day, I'll be playing. And if not, I'll just be
bring some models to build or paint.
I may well do that. So I'll be there to drink your Diet Coke. Anyway, right. Thanks everyone for sticking with us. And yeah, and here's to you and yours in Heresy. See you next time.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.